My name is Justin Ziegler. I'm an attorney with the law firm of JZ Helps, an injury law firm in Florida, and today I'm going to be talking about calculating the value of a herniated disc case if someone else caused your herniated disc in an accident. First, we're going to look at a normal disc. This is the vertebra, this is the disc. Here you can see the jelly-like substance inside the disc. You can see pushing against the nerve. This is the herniated disc. This article is going to focus, as I already discussed, on claims where someone else's carelessness caused your herniated disc. I've already been over what a herniated disc is. Is it related to an accident? Yes, it can be caused by an accident. I'm going to get into that much more in detail in a few minutes or seconds. You can get a herniated disc in your lower back, in your mid-back, or your neck. Herniated discs are not normally found in the emergency room. This is primarily because they take a CT scan, CAT scan, or x-rays of your neck or back, and not an MRI. This is an MRI machine where your herniated disc, if you have one, will most likely be found using this machine. I'm going to just look at a few settlements I've had right now. This is a herniated disc. You can see the disc is herniated here. This is from a settlement I settled for $100,000. My client was on a motorcycle and he was hit by another vehicle that failed to yield the right of way. He also had some other injuries too. The herniated disc was not the only injury that he had. You'll see links here which link to other articles on my website. In the comments in the description section below the video, I'm going to have links to this article where you can browse other articles from those links. This is a herniated disc from a $17,000 settlement I have involving a car accident with very little or not too much property damage to the car. You can see the herniation there, C3, C4. The C stands for cervical, your neck. 3, 4 is the level that it happened at, level 3, level 4. There's another one at C5, C6 right there. Now, most neck and back pain gets resolved after 6 weeks. However, there's a chance you get a herniated disc and the pain does not resolve. Radicular symptoms. You may hear the word radicular in your medical records. That just means that, that happens when you have a pinched nerve and your symptoms, the pain or irritation is coming down your arms or your legs. Here's what a pinched nerve looks like. As you can see, this is the disc. This is just a close-up of this. The pinched nerve is there. It's pressing about that area, and it's causing pain to flow down your arms or your legs. And I'm going to get into this a little bit more, but when you have those symptoms running down your arm or your leg, that generally drives up the full value of the pain and suffering component of a herniated disc. What do I mean by full value? Full value is without reducing the value of that pain and suffering component by your fault or difficulty proving that the herniated disc was caused by the accident. You also may be entitled to out-of-pocket medical bills and lost wages as well. You may need surgery from a herniated disc if it's pressing on the spinal nerve. If you have surgery, that also, as you can imagine, drives up the full value of the pain and suffering component of the case. Again, that is full value before any reductions for your fault or anything else. One of the surgeries that you may have after having, if you're diagnosed with a serious herniated disc, is an ACDF. The A stands for anterior, C is for cervical, DF is for disc fusion. They go in through here and they fuse your vertebrae. That, as you can imagine, drives up the value. Just looking at the surgery room, you can see the seriousness associated with this, the pain and suffering that you'll have leading up to the surgery and after the surgery drives up the full value. Now, herniated disc can cause sciatica, which is pain running down your leg. That also can drive up the full value of the pain and suffering component of the case. That's the sciatica is where the pain runs down the sciatic nerve down the leg. Sometimes I have people that call me and they say, Justin, or sometimes I see it on my own clients' MRI reports, Justin, I have 7 herniated discs, 3 in the lower back, 4 in the neck, or vice versa, the other way around. I didn't have these before the accident. The defendant, the other side, should be responsible. Well, unfortunately, the reality is if the insurance company looks at 7 herniated discs or so, they're going to say you had a diseased spine before the accident. I've heard some doctors say that you can herniate 1 disc from an accident, maybe 2. But after you get into 2 herniated discs, any amount above that, doctors start to get very skeptical as to whether the accident may have caused the herniated disc. Can a disc protrusion be painful? The answer is yes. As soon as you get your CT scan, the study, or even the film itself, which should be on a CD nowadays, or the MRI film, you want to send that to the adjuster immediately, particularly if it says you have a herniated disc on it. You want them to see it for their eyes so they can see the seriousness of the herniated disc. Sooner, the better. I've written other articles about herniated disc settlement values from car accidents, and then I wrote some about slip and falls. The links are there. Again, in the description below the video, I'll have the link to this article where you can look at all that jazz. Now, this article does really not focus on cases if you have a herniated disc from work. Claim is against your employer. I mean, a lot of the medical terminology is what it is, and it applies to all types of accidents, but the pain and suffering components applies to cases where someone else's carelessness or negligence caused your accident or your herniated disc. Sometimes the adjuster is going to tell you, you know, you don't have pain running down your arms or your legs and radiating. Your herniated disc must not be that serious. I disagree with that. You can still have a herniated disc worth a significant amount of money for the pain and suffering component, even if you don't have pain running down your arms or your legs. This isn't me making this up from orthopedic doctors. That's how I learned this and through research and handling claims. You need to look at past jury verdicts and settlements for herniated discs so that you can know how much juries have recently been awarding for the pain, primarily the pain and suffering component of a herniated disc. Every herniated disc is not worth the same amount of money. I have people say, hey, Justin, how much is a herniated disc worth? Well, there's so many factors that go into it. I'm going to get to a lot of those very shortly. But just understand, all herniated discs are not treated equal. Without a breakdown of the different damage components of a case, just reading on the internet, it's going to give you a very poor idea of how much a herniated disc case is worth. What do I mean by that? Well, it's possible someone had no health insurance and they received a $45,000 settlement for a herniated disc, and $30,000 of that was for medical bills, where someone else had Medicaid, which paid very little, and they got $45,000. I'm just throwing that number out just as a random number, and all that money was for pain and suffering. So it's you need to know how much was awarded for the pain and suffering component of the case. Unfortunately, if you go on the internet, a lot of times you're not going to find that information. If you're subscribed to a jury verdict search, which you have to pay for monthly generally, that's how you get the breakdowns. And even a lot of the verdicts that are reported really don't have the breakdown of the pain and suffering component. Your attorney should know your case value, but only after you're done finished treating. Prior to when you're finished treating, you don't know if you're going to need more surgery or if your injuries aren't going to go away, and your final status, you don't know. So really wait until you're done treating in most cases. How much is the value, the full value without any reductions for the pain and suffering component? I put it at around $25,000 to $50,000 in Florida. There's many factors things that can affect that value. Again, there's no guarantee you'll get a penny. You need there to be insurance. I'm going to get into a lot of that very shortly. But that's full value as a starting point in Florida. Each state is different. In fact, many counties in Florida are different. Some jurors and some counties are much more likely to award money than in smaller counties. Now, that's a very large range, $25,000 to $50,000. You know, the lower end is for little treatment, the high easily, but component can rise outside the upper end of the range with serious pain. Like I said. Look at verdicts. This one is not mine, but a customer got $370,000 verdict and was awarded that just for the pain and suffering component of the case. They were awarded other damages as well, but I focus on the pain and suffering component, which is what you want to know. The person's going to have different medical bills and lost wages, or may have lost wages, etc., but you want to know that pain and suffering component of the case. It wasn't just a herniated disc. It was a herniated disc, and then she had a 3-level fusion. So 3 of the 3 levels were fused together. That injury is a very serious injury. When she was in Home Depot, fell on her. In other cases, was awarded $550,000 just for the pain and suffering component. Now, that is not my case. She slipped and fell at a condominium. She had to prove the condominium was careless, and that caused her injury. The condominium, as they usually do, placed 40% fault. Actually, it was the jury that placed 40% fault on her. What does that what happens when the jury in Florida places 40% fault on you? Your total verdict is reduced by 40%, your fault. Future medical bills, so it's likely she had future surgery, although I don't know whether she had surgery or not. I'll assume she did. Another individual was awarded $55,000 at trial for a herniated disc. Royal Caribbean Cruise Line was the defendant, who she said was careless. She also had a rotator cuff tear, and she slipped and fell. There's a link to that article. If you have a cruise case, generally speaking, with the big cruise lines, you need to sue out of Miami, Florida, right? So you should get in a lower back. Of those, most occur at the L5-S1 region, where the bottom of the lumbar spine meets the sacrum. Now, you can see how much a herniated disc case is worth, because some people have a herniated disc injury and a shoulder tear, some people have a herniated fracture wrist, etc. What factors can decrease and lower the full value for the pain and suffering component of a herniated disc? If you have prior pain in the same level or at the same herniated disc prior to the injury, you may need to reduce the full value for the pain and suffering by the percentage chance that a jury believes a doctor who says maybe your your herniated disc pre-existed the accident. Your age. It is easier for these 2 or 3 individuals to prove that their herniated disc was caused by an accident than this gentleman here. I'm going to get into the reason why in 1 second. Years ago, where it concluded that many people have herniated discs and they don't even know it. So 67 people had lower back pain and sciatica, pain running down. 67 people had no lower back pain and had no sciatica, no pain running down their leg. 30%, about 1 out of every 3, had something substantially wrong with their lower back, even though prior to them getting inside the MRI machine, they said, I have no pain in my lower back and no sciatica. Insurance companies love this study, as do defense orthopedic doctors and neurologists. Okay, this study that people under 60 years old, 1 out of every 5 had a herniated disc and 1 had spinal stenosis. So this is have no lower back pain, no sciatica, and 1 out of 5 had a herniated disc, even though they did not know it. So insurance companies love throwing this study in our face. Now, when we get to older individuals, and older individuals are also make claims. Out of 60 years, people who are 60 years and older who took this study, 57 of them, that means about 6 out of every 10, had issues with their lower back, even though they said before the study, I have no lower back pain or sciatica. There was degeneration, breaking down slowly over time of the spine or bulging disc, and at least 1 level at their lower back in about 35. So about almost 4 out of every 10 of them had issues with a bulging disc or degeneration in their lower back. What other factors make an attorney respond to your case when you ask how much is a herniated disc worth, saying, I don't know? Little damage to the vehicles involved. This is a case we represented a gentleman. You can see 0 damage to the car. It's a much tougher sell to tell the insurance company that you have a herniated disc that was caused by this accident if someone looks at the car and sees no damage and the other driver says, hey, I was going 1 mile an hour. Generally, if possible, want to treat with an orthopedic doctor, they hold more weight with the insurance company and the jury. If you've been a construction worker and manual labor, it can make it more difficult to prove the herniated disc was caused by the accident, although we've represented many construction workers and laborers and we've done well for them. The defense doctor, even though your own doctor, hopefully, if true, says your herniated disc, you have a herniated disc, even if your own doctor says you have a herniated disc, the doctor can hire their doctor who looks at it and says, you know what, it's not a herniated disc, I feel it's a bulging disc. that can decrease the full value of the case, because after all, who is the jury going to believe? If the at-fault party has a $10,000 bodily injury liability, which would pay for your injuries, your pain and suffering, will they normally pay you $1,000 limits? And the answer is maybe. The more documentation you give them, the higher chance that happens, but there's no guarantee. Some insurance companies are known for fighting a lot harder, and the case may require a lawsuit. Okay? Factors that increase the chance of proving that, increasing the value of your claim. If you're a pedestrian when the car hit you, then you don't have to deal with the property damage issue. Drunk. If you're young, it's easier to prove that the herniated disc was caused by the accident. If you have a large herniated disc, you want to look at the millimeter size. 6 millimeters is large, 1 to 2 millimeters is small. If you're in an accident in Florida, that doesn't require you to prove your injury is permanent in order to get money for pain and suffering. Most car accidents in Florida, you need to prove your injury is permanent in order to get money for pain and suffering. Some other accidents, such as if you're on a motorcycle, and many others, you don't. You need to know the type of accident you're in and whether you need to prove that.